Son, everything is going according to my plan. A week before the wedding, the bride overheard a conversation between her future mother-in-law and her fiancé, and when she decided to teach them a lesson, welcome to our channel, and we invite you to watch the video with our new original story. Valentina stretched sweetly and peacefully. She was about to slip back under the covers, but her mother's scolding pulled her out of her dreams immediately. What is this, my star? In just a week, you'll already be a married lady, and you're still sleeping like a little child in pajamas with bunnies. Why did I fill your dresser with beautiful lace and silk lingerie? So you'd get used to wearing it. Even though you and Raphael have already lived together for a couple of trial months, you've seen each other in home clothes, but you still haven't gotten rid of your girlish habits. Consuelo wiped the ever-present dust off the portrait of her own mother, standing on the nightstand, and once again thought sadly, Grandma Valentina missed her granddaughter's wedding by just a little. They were inseparable. The elder Valentina would be so happy for her darling right now. After telling her daughter that breakfast was getting cold on the table, she asked about her plans. The happy bride rattled on. This week before the wedding, I'll still stay here with you. Our flight to Sicily is the day after the registry and banquet, so I'll pack things in advance. Later it will be inconvenient. Now I'm going to Raphael's place. We wanted to discuss how to seat the guests at the tables. Not everyone knows each other, and we'd like everyone to feel comfortable and cozy at our celebration. Valentina quickly drank her coffee with toast, refused anything more substantial, tossed the car keys into her bag, and within minutes was out the door. Consuelo only managed to call after her. If you decide to stay overnight at your apartment again, don't forget to call and let me know. But who was listening? Her daughter was already gone. The woman chuckled. How quickly everything had worked out between Valentina and Raphael. Almost surprising, given the modern carefree attitudes of youth. They had only lived together without a marriage certificate for a couple of months, and that was after filing their application. Usually, young people weren't eager for official marriage, but here both the young man and his mother immediately started talking about an upcoming wedding. Why wait if two halves have found each other? Valentina was closing her car door when, out of nowhere, a bold hooligan jumped to the front passenger side. Through the still open window, he grabbed her handbag with all her belongings and was about to run off, but not so fast. Out of thin air appeared tall, broad-shouldered Raphael. He snatched the bag back, tripped the thief, and knocked him to the ground. The young criminal had quick reflexes, bounced back up like a rubber ball and vanished, but all of Valentina's belongings were safe and sound. Valentina smiled at her rescuer. Half an hour later, they were already sitting together in a cafe, eating ice cream and chatting. They exchanged phone numbers. The new acquaintance called the very next day. They started dating. They had a lot in common. Both had studied finance. Valentina headed the commercial department in her father's company, while Raphael developed computer programs for accountants and economists, feeling right at home in that world. He gave her useful tips that made her work much easier. They enjoyed being together everywhere. Valentina truly saw Raphael as a knight, her hero. He had a romantic streak, courted her beautifully, brought her armfuls of mimosa, lilies of the valley, lilacs, flowers with strong aromas that she adored. Though he didn't know how, he baked oatmeal cookies in the oven instead of just buying them at the store. He inspired trust, seemed very reliable and decent. In Valentina's two-room apartment, they happily settled in. Both rushed home after work, both looked forward to their evenings together. They decided not to make the wedding a grand event. Better to go on a picturesque adventure to Sicily. From there, they could even hop over to Malta for a couple of days. The hotel program promised to be rich too. Valentina didn't see her future mother-in-law often. Every time they met, the woman was overflowing with politeness, always eager to seat the future daughter-in-law in the best spot, to treat her with delicacies. Married life for Valentina promised to be bright and pleasant, without any unpleasant surprises. Now the future bride lovingly looked at her red car. She admired the airbrush design on the side, a Black Panther mid-leap. She remembered her father's outrage that she had decorated her car in such a way that it was recognizable all over town. She hadn't confessed to him that she had also paid for a designer interior. She earned well and could afford that indulgence. Raphael always joked when he sat in her car, that you could tell right away it belonged to a woman. The colors aren't neon, but everything seems pink and perfumed. All that's missing are vases with your favorite flowers, and it would be perfect. She drove swiftly up to the building where Raphael lived with his parents, but disappointment awaited. She had arrived earlier than expected, and no one answered the doorbell. On the windowsill between two floors, a man in a work uniform with a complicated abbreviation on his breast pocket was watching her attempts. Seeing her efforts fail, he suddenly asked, "If you don't mind me asking, what's your relation to the owners of this apartment?" "And why do you care?" Valentina shot back. "I installed their video surveillance system yesterday. Today I came for signatures on the contract and to collect my fee. Been waiting here for almost an hour. Where did they all go? I have proof I'm not a crook. Look, I adjusted the camera images yesterday, so who are you to them?" Valentina laughed and introduced herself. "I'm not a crook either. In a week I'm marrying the owner's son." Just then the technician's phone rang. He answered cheerfully. "Darling, yes, I'll be a bit late. Yes, I remember. I'll bring the cake. Wait for me, I'll be right there." He handed Valentina the tablet he'd been holding, pressed something on the screen, and went down the stairs, cooing into the phone to his sweetheart. Valentina glanced at the screen and froze. Before her appeared Raphael and Isabel, sitting on the living room couch. The sound was clear. Hearing their dialogue, Valentina turned to Stone. "Son, everything is going according to my plan. Everything is moving as I expected. Don't sulk. That poor girl Carmen could never give you a glorious future. Remember how you two came to visit after classes at university? She was always starving in that dormitory life. Mom, what do you know? I love Carmen and can't forget her. Valentina, she's wonderful, very smart in her profession, attractive, a great companion. But do you understand the difference between a companion and the woman you love?" Valentina couldn't tear her eyes away from the screen. Luckily, the technician was still whispering sweet nothings to his girlfriend. Her knees buckled, her vision blurred. "Raphael loves another. Then why is he marrying me?" The improvised movie continued, his mother's voice again. "Oh, stop with that nonsense, Raphael. Valentina isn't repulsive to you, is she?" Valentina blushed, shocked that her future husband even discussed such things with his mother. But Raphael stood firm. "Valentina is an amazing woman, Mom. You are being extremely tactless asking me that." His mother, displeased with his answer, hissed, "You must keep her on a short leash. Make that rich girl buy you the SUV you always dreamed of, and later a country house where your father and I could spend weekends. Her parents probably won't splurge on seaside trips for us, and we can't afford luxury vacations. I've staked everything on your marriage. And as for Carmen, you can keep seeing her in secret, even after the wedding. I'll always cover for you. Just make sure to secure your wife's property. What's hers will become shared. When you divorce, everything acquired will be split 50-50. Valentina didn't hear Raphael's reply. The technician came back to her. She didn't want to seem nosy anymore. What she'd already seen and heard was more than enough. On the way home, she asked herself, why had she agreed to Raphael's proposal so quickly? Several answers came to mind. His heroic act when he saved her purse, his constant attentiveness and tenderness, the absence of any signs that he loved someone else. Maybe it was all a trick. Was the technician an imposter planted there? But her instincts told her otherwise. What she had just witnessed a week before her wedding was bitter truth, not fiction. Half an hour later, back home, Valentina told her parents everything. Her mother's reaction was furious. She grabbed the phone to call Isabel, but then paused, smirked ironically, and told her husband and daughter, I have a plan too. We'll take another path. Raphael waited in vain for Valentina to meet and discuss the banquet seating. She didn't show up, later called to say something unexpected came up with her parents. Promised to meet tomorrow. Still, Raphael had plenty of unresolved wedding details. He decided to use the free time for another matter. He desperately missed Carmen. He had promised himself countless times not to deceive two women at once, but he couldn't help it. He knew it was wrong, even vile. But once again, his feet carried him to that little dorm room where Carmen locked the door, and he was back in paradise. He felt good with Valentina. They were well matched. But with Carmen, he breathed differently, relished beauty and warmth, lived fully, forgetting everything else. That first date with Valentina after the parking lot incident had been his mother's idea. Isabel couldn't stand Carmen, the modest primary school teacher. She couldn't comprehend what her son saw in that poor provincial girl living in a shabby dorm who hadn't pursued a career in economics. She hadn't even found a decent job after graduation, settled for a meager salary and didn't care. A girl like that, Isabel thought, was fine as a fling, but not someone to bring home. Why should Raphael's future be burdened with feeding that always hungry thing forever? But Carmen was not starving. She was simply naturally slender, delicate, vibrant. Strong Raphael loved carrying that light reed in his arms. She would wrap her arms around his neck, whisper in his ear, brush her lashes against his cheek. He melted, ready to lay the world at her feet. There's a saying, the woman who shares a man's bed will always outdo any other woman in his life. But with Raphael, things were different. His mother was a force of nature, unstoppable when she set her mind to something. He wasn't exactly a mama's boy, but her authority over him was absolute. He listened to her, and she knew how to sow seeds into well-prepared soil. Buying Carmen's favorite flowers, pastries, champagne, Raphael rushed to his one and only. Inside, he felt torn. He didn't want to hurt Valentina, didn't want to deceive her. But his passion for Carmen was stronger than his conscience. Right now, he felt as though he hated his mother, who kept pushing him so insistently into a legal marriage with a wealthy bride. And Valentina, at that very moment, was torturing herself with thoughts, comparing, leafing through the past years like a book someone had written about her fate. Many around her had thought since childhood that she was a girl born with a silver spoon in her mouth. Her father had built up a solid capital entirely legally. His business had practically no shady underside with tricks or double bookkeeping. The company steadily prospered and grew. His wife was a faithful helper, both in business, thanks to her strong education, and at home, carefully tending the family hearth. Valentina's parents had dearly wanted more than one child, but Valentina had been hard on her mother to carry. While the woman was pregnant, it became clear her body couldn't fully handle the strain of two lives. Serious health problems began. They decided against further experiments. The father loved his wife too much to risk her. So they poured all their love and tenderness onto their daughter. Her elder namesake didn't lag behind them either. Amid the warmth and affection of her parents and her grandmother Valentina, the granddaughter grew safely to the age of 10. She never had to go to preschool. Grandma wouldn't even hear of her darling going to daycare. She taught her all the basics herself, and even the school subjects in advance. The elderly woman was a merited biology teacher. Valentina later joked that by the age of 5, she already knew the phyla, classes, and types of all animals, and could easily name every plant at their dacha. She was friends with all the household pets, and there were quite a few. Moreover, the older generation chose their lesser brothers by rules that seemed strange to others. The more helpless and homely, the better. At the country house, where a kind of housekeeper of the country estate lived full-time, 7 dogs and cats coexisted peacefully. In the city apartment with Valentina, Grandma, and Grandpa lived a poodle named Kostochka and a cat named Vasquez. Veterinarians had serious doubts about the purity of either's breed. Their appearance was comical, but that never bothered anyone. So it turned out that Valentina grew up both smart and gentle, kind. These qualities were nurtured and encouraged in her in every way. The only thing that upset the growing girl was her appearance. She had been so awkward for so long, arms and legs like twigs, thin, small, not feminine at all. The kind of girl people say looks like a boy. Only her luxurious hair saved the situation. There aren't many boys in the world with thick plush braids. Her father consoled his daughter with puzzling words. My little violator of gender stereotypes. Looks like a lad on the outside, a timid girl at heart. Valentina didn't understand then that her father was hiding his fears that the ugly duckling wouldn't turn into a graceful swan, that his daughter might have a complicated woman's fate, that suitors wouldn't pay attention to her, and she'd live tangled in complexes. He tried to make up for her distress over her looks with expensive gifts, which didn't make Valentina conceited or arrogant. Quite the contrary. When her father, at 15, first sat her behind the wheel and began teaching her to drive, she melted from his trust. She picked things up instantly. A year later, of course, still without any license, she could practically drive with her eyes closed. Her parents would laugh. A traffic cop will stop you and be shocked. A driver barely knee-high to a grasshopper at the wheel, and really handling that big SUV. When Valentina turned 17, she was still an angular teenager. Her feminine curves weren't rounding out, her sharp figure didn't attract interest from boys. Even at the school prom, not a single classmate asked her to dance. Valentina spent the evening holding up the wall, not joining the general celebration of the end of school drudgery. She chose her future profession without hesitation. Numbers had always fascinated her. Economics would be just the thing. All the more so because her father placed great hopes on her bright head. She began appearing at her father's company office in her first year at the institute, and before that, a very significant event occurred. Her parents decided to celebrate her admission to university with an expensive gift. Valentina was to have a month-long trip to the Mediterranean, to sunny Turkey. So she wouldn't be bored alone, her father decided to pay for the trip for her loyal friend, who had also been admitted to the same department. The girls had spent much time together since school, prepared for exams together, fell asleep side by side on Valentina's wide bed, understood each other at half a word, so the future students set off with enthusiasm. Valentina had been to the Turkish coast more than once. For her companion, everything was new and enticing. She dragged her friend on every excursion, stood in awe before ancient relics among the ruins of Ephesus, swooned over giant turtles on the Valadanis coast, didn't want to get out of Cleopatra's pool. For good measure, they flew to Istanbul and visited all the city's major sites. After that, Valentina declared a resolute boycott of all Turkey's other delights, arguing convincingly, "They say there's still the sea right here in Marmaris. I want to swim to my heart's content, sunbathe, soak in the salty water of the Aegean. The most I can promise you, friend, is spa visits, massages, and the hammam. In the evening, all right, we'll go downtown to Bar Street and stroll through the watering holes. Clear on the maximum program?" Her friend hugged her and nodded in agreement. That arrangement suited her too. Relaxation it would be. Returning from their last excursion to the hotel, the two tourists delighted the management with their generosity and signed up for all the wellness procedures on the list. After they had soaked in the steam of the Turkish hammam, their skin opened like a flower to the sun. Their tans were smooth and beautiful, and a healthy blush appeared on their cheeks. The masseur, Omar, told Valentina she looked like the bud of a marvelous rose. She blushed. No one had ever paid her such compliments. Then the massage maestro began to work his magic on her body, praising her patience, encouraging her desire to change. 2 days later, Omar invited her for a walk along the Dijsseldar promenade. He spoke Spanish excellently, having learned it specifically to be on the same wavelength with Spanish-speaking clients, who were usually more numerous at that hotel than Germans and Scandinavians. That knowledge helped him earn much more. Guests from Latin America and Spain generally didn't skimp on tips. After an hour's walk by the sea, Omar and Valentina settled into loungers to admire the moonrise. A shining orb rising slowly, romantically from behind the water. The girl didn't resist when, against that backdrop, the young man kissed her. Their resort romance on the Mediterranean coast lasted 2 weeks. Her friend didn't object to Valentina not spending nights in their room and disappearing with Omar whenever he wasn't with clients. The girl transformed before her eyes. They parted calmly. Valentina quickly learned her lover was married. After the high season, his wife and little son were waiting for him at home in Ankara. Moralists may be ready to condemn Valentina for her fickleness. They shouldn't. Haven't they themselves been young, yearning for love? After a month in Turkey, the girl who had become a woman changed so much outwardly that it was like night and day. Such an end justifies the means, so don't judge her harshly. In her heart, she felt endless gratitude to Omar, for his tenderness, for the enchanting nights in his staff room, for his attentiveness and care. Each had played their role in her story. After returning from Turkey, no one at home recognized Valentina. It seemed that in a month she had become not merely a graceful swan, but a firebird with colorful plumage. The young woman carried her head high, met men's eyes boldly when they gawked at her, and parried their jokes on the fly. After a while, her newbie's fire subsided, but her femininity and allure remained. After Omar, Valentina entered new romances easily, without fanaticism, and without her old tendencies of a shy blue-stocking. No, she did not throw herself into debauchery. Before the wedding, she dated only two men, and with both it soon became clear, not meant to be. Raphael, her rescuer in the parking lot, was the first she truly trusted and genuinely fell for. He seemed exactly what a husband, friend, life partner should be. Now her idea of the purity and decency of relationships had collapsed. From all sides, treacherous complexes surrounded her again. She had to teach her future mother-in-law a lesson. She had to dot every I in this marriage story on her own terms. Carmen greeted Raphael in a peculiar way. At first, he didn't understand what change had come over his beloved. Usually, she would throw herself on his neck the moment he crossed the threshold. Now she was silent as a shore. Her eyes were either sullen or suspiciously sly. What could have happened while they hadn't seen each other? The answer came quickly. His sweetheart couldn't help sharing the stunning news. "Your mother came to see me, Rafa. She came to make peace, to mend fences." The man couldn't believe his ears. This was new. He immediately asked, "And what makes you think she came with good intentions?" "She told me the whole truth," Carmen said happily, beaming, "that you're getting married for convenience, and asked me to accept your infidelity." She kept chattering like a radio. "Can you imagine, Raphael? She told me she's always liked me, and she can't see any other wife beside you. But you two don't live that well. I have to help secure our future, yours and your parents'. I'll need to wait 6 months to a year until your wife buys you a 4-room apartment, a country house, and an SUV. Then when you divorce, all that property will be split evenly." Isabel laid everything out for me step by step. Raphael listened to Carmen and was once again amazed at how vile and calculating his own mother turned out to be. Can happiness be built on calculation, on someone else's misfortune? But Carmen looked at him with such bottomless, serene, endlessly happy eyes that soon he forgot all doubts. If the only way to be with this woman was to first get through the whole performance of marrying Valentina, he would endure that joyless period with a woman he didn't love. He would wait and be patient. He no longer thought about his future wife's feelings. After spending the whole day with Carmen, Raphael felt a renewed inner certainty that everything ahead would go like clockwork. Valentina loved him. There was every chance she would want to fulfill his wishes. How to deal with the windfall later, that would be figured out in due time. For now, he needed to go home and keep playing the role of the head-over-heels, well-behaved fiancé. The next day, Valentina and Raphael met as if nothing had happened. He masterfully played the devoted man. She ably presented herself as the happy, serene bride. Even Valentina's parents were amazed at how well their daughter could pretend. And Isabel, she rejoiced that everything was moving so smoothly according to her plan, without obstacles, something no one would ever know. The woman knew how to keep her secrets. No wonder she had gone to that dearie Carmen to sing her a romance about her supposed love. She very much needed Raphael's flame to keep her mouth shut for the time being. She'd deal with her later. She'd think up a way to get rid of that ragamuffin. Isabel smirked ironically. She recalled how Carmen's eyes became like saucers when she saw her would-be mother-in-law on her doorstep. And the faux loving mother-in-law had already put on her record, "Oh, Carmen, how spacious, bright, and cozy your room is. And those lace doilies under the flower pot, on the bookshelf, under the candy dish. Did you really crochet them yourself? You're such a craftswoman. Things like that are all the rage now." She didn't refuse tea, praised the homemade cookies, even patted Carmen on the head as the girl was about to shed a tear from tenderness. She perched on the edge of the chair and mused to herself, how could Raphael be drawn to such simplicity? Men never think when their desire leads them around. No matter. We'll fix this now. And if that's not enough, we'll consolidate our initial success later. If I decide to make someone happy, there's no escaping me. Valentina and Raphael's wedding was just right. Festive without being over the top, Lively without being overcrowded, the newlyweds graciously accepted warm congratulations from friends and family. Everyone played their part as an absolutely happy person, at least for the moment, to perfection. Even naive Carmen sat quietly in her dorm room, having sworn not to do anything that might get in her beloved's way. She stepped aside, hoping that one day the enchanting strains of Mendelssohn's Wedding March would sound on her street too. This time for her and Raphael, they had both promised. Her man and his mother, the would-be kind, loving mother-in-law, she would be patient. The plane carrying the newly minted husband and wife to the island was full of chattering tourists, expecting a flood of positive emotions from their trip. Valentina soaked up their mood like a dying battery suddenly taking a charge. Raphael was going to Italy for the first time. So why wear a mask of sadness? She would show him what he would be giving up after divorcing her. The unloved, the unnecessary one. The woman he planned to throw away soon as no longer needed. Before they left, Valentina's father transferred a tidy sum to her card for the couple's entertainment. The young woman didn't scrimp. Everything for her beloved. The best restaurants, shops, gifts. Raphael was stunned by his wife's unbridled generosity. The fact that he hadn't earned any of this luxury didn't trouble him in the least. Let the father-in-law splash out. His mother had been right. With the wedding lottery, he had pulled the winning, moneyed ticket. Valentina took her husband through the boutiques, dressed him to the nines, kept ordering food for him to their room, not from the resort's buffet for all guests, but something special and refined. The drinks matched the quality. Bathing her husband in the pleasures of luxury, the young wife showed him in every way what his life could look like, if not every day, then often. She handed Raphael the card so he could feel like a knight, the lord of the manor, a kind of provider. He paid the bills, threw money around, spent without a second thought. They went to Malta with a private guide. They rode up toward the crater of Mount Etna, almost in a limousine, sipping sparkling wine as they drew closer to the beauty of the volcanic slopes, joking and laughing all the way. At moments, Raphael was visited by thoughts like, how can I plan to treat her like this? She's beautiful, smart, educated, warm, gentle, and tender. Not a wife, a dream. Maybe I should forget Carmen once and for all, drive away every memory. At night, he even feared that, at the worst possible moment, he would call Valentina by another woman's name, let his guard down and slip up over something so stupid, but his brain still policed his tongue. He made no blunders. Everything was smooth and lovely. To her own surprise, Valentina was completely calm. She didn't dwell on the video she had seen in Raphael's building. She enjoyed herself and allowed herself to relax. During the Sicilian honeymoon, she decided not to spoil her mood with heavy thoughts. She didn't much want to play the love-struck fool, but Italy was so wonderful that she decided, without announcing it out loud, let everything run its course for now. By the time we're back home, all the surprises I've prepared for my husband will be in place. All good things end eventually. The newlyweds' wedding tour, too, came to its logical close. They returned home pleased with themselves and the trip. Raphael tried not to think about Carmen pining for him somewhere in her dorm. He had a right, after all, to a slice of the good life. Who knew how things would turn out with Carmen later? And here everything was wonderfully simple. Spend someone else's money, get your own enjoyment. The taxi from the airport took Raphael and Valentina in an unknown direction, which immediately astonished the man. Driver, did we take a wrong turn? Our apartment, and Raphael already considered Valentina's two-bedroom flat his own as well, has a completely different address, and it's in another neighborhood. Darling, Valentina stopped him. The driver's going the right way. I've prepared a surprise for you, but I didn't know how much of it would be finished by the time we got back. No use speculating. We'll see on the spot whether the contractors manage to finish my list in 2 weeks, a prestigious district on the outskirts. Raphael had heard that only real fat cats could afford to live there. Every courtyard had landscaped gardens, workout stations, children's areas with colorful attractions, and open-air pools of turquoise water. The local infrastructure could make the gods jealous: schools, kindergartens, its own clinic and dental office, a scattering of stores from supermarkets to clothing boutiques, cafes, pharmacies, banks, delivery services. Until now, Raphael had probably never set foot in places like this near ordinary apartment blocks. He stared out the window, jaw dropped, while Valentina quietly smiled to herself. Honey, my parents opened a bank account for me on my birthday ages ago with a decent interest rate. It was a program, save funds for the child's wedding. I didn't rush into marriage early, and they kept topping it up. It added up to quite a lot. That allowed me to buy a luxurious apartment for us and our future children. I hope you'll like it. Raphael was in total shock. Thoughts thrashed in his head like birds in a net. His mother had said that after the divorce, all Valentina's wealth would be split in half. So, did that mean he had just become the happy owner of posh real estate? Well, he fell into complete stupor when he saw the apartment itself. 4 rooms, custom design, a balcony wrapping around all the rooms, lavishly furnished. He went euphoric as he toured the quarters. An enormous kitchen with the most cutting-edge appliances. Loads of charming touches and gadgets, making the space unbelievably cozy. He was speechless, eyes shining. He hugged Valentina with feeling, but she gently pulled away. I bought this apartment before our marriage registration, darling. I wanted to delight you after our Italian tour, that we'd now be living in a more spacious place. The man froze, instantly thinking, so that means this property, after we split, will remain Valentina's as premarital acquisition? Mother will be furious that nothing here falls to me. All her calculations to profit off Valentina are for nothing. When I marry Carmen, will I have to bring her to my parents' place? And it's cramped there already. His mood was ruined beyond repair, but he didn't show it to his wife. He sat down with her for tea. Her parents had stuffed the fridge to the brim for their arrival. They wouldn't go hungry tonight. Now he'd have to be careful with the car, and country house too. There he would insist on his way. He'd outfox Valentina and her parents. Valentina herself brought up the car. A few days later, the question arose of how they'd commute. Their offices were in opposite parts of the city. Sure, Valentina could give her husband a lift in her little car, but it would be a hassle and eat up her time. During this conversation, Valentina kept smiling mysteriously, and then, as if she couldn't hold it in, announced, "Don't worry, love. My parents took care of that too. My grandmother Valentina had an apartment in the city sitting empty for years. She and Grandpa used to live there, but he died long ago, and Grandma moved in with us when I was very little. I didn't know, but it turns out she'd bequeathed that place to me, a flat in a well-known building covered with plaques to famous people. While we were away, my parents sold that apartment and bought us a car, a cool, huge SUV with all-wheel drive. They registered it in my name, though. But it doesn't matter to you, sweetheart. We're together till death do us part." She turned and looked closely at Raphael. He stood like a pillar of salt, all color drained from his face. She feigned alarm, and he didn't sense the act. "Raphael, are you feeling unwell? And here I am with news. That was another surprise for you. The car's in the shop for some tuning. But don't worry, no designer frills this time. Just a few performance upgrades. It'll fly like a rocket. You know how I love speed, window down, wind in my face." He kept standing like an idol, responding weakly to Valentina's rapture. The young woman thought to herself, "And you, dear, thought that against brazen force there's no clever counter-move? You and Isabel miscalculated. Maybe I'm a bit of a fool. I believed in your love, saw a hero, even a knight. But life, that tin can, quickly set everything right again. Black is black again. It won't wash to white. White kept its purity. True decency, if it exists, can't be defiled. From above, everything is seen. Remember that. Providence looked out for me and sent the CCTV installer. I learned about your schemes, that you love another woman. Why would you do this to me, Raphael? What did I ever do to you?" Aloud, the proud new owner of the shiny, chrome-laden, powerful SUV said none of this, of course. She didn't even have to guess her husband's thoughts. From his face, she could tell he felt like the legendary Stierlitz on the brink of exposure. He certainly hadn't expected this turn. Mustering the last of his self-control, Raphael decided to throw his remaining cards on one final bet, to take an active role in purchasing a country house. He decided it would be tactless to raise it now, and postponed that move to the near future. They went to the shop with Valentina and picked up the gorgeous gray SUV. A trivial name for the shade flitted through Raphael's mind. Something like wet asphalt. The dealership manager invited him to take the driver's seat. Valentina smiled encouragingly. The car leapt forward from the first second, as if it had already been flying full tilt for an hour. Inside, it smelled enticingly of leather and an expensive air freshener. Raphael nearly bit his elbows in frustration. This toy was slipping past him, too. After the divorce, he wouldn't get even a door handle. Valentina's parents were crafty, protecting their daughter against life's mishaps. He didn't want to think about how he and his mother had planned to take them for a ride. On Monday, working life began for Raphael and Valentina. The fact that Valentina's parents had substantial means was no reason to loaf if you were young and healthy. The young woman was excellent at her profession in finance, valued in her father's company and respected by colleagues. She lived, as her father joked, by an acid-alkali balance. Mornings, off to the job she loved. Evenings, home to her husband at a run. Her parents didn't ask whether she planned to divorce Raphael after that ill-fated video. They did everything possible to leave Isabel and her darling boy out in the cold. They helped close every property deal, offering Valentina neither advice nor recommendations about her private life. Their girl was all grown up. She'd sorted out herself. 2 weeks slipped by unnoticed amid workdays. Raphael hunched over a custom accounting program for a client, while Valentina, as usual, was busy in the bowels of her father's business. Isabel knew of Valentina's acquisitions only in broad strokes, but she had already run to a family law attorney for a consultation. He crushed her last hopes of cashing in. "Isabel, my dear, there are simply no options here. Your son will enjoy all this luxury only as long as he remains the legal husband of that wealthy woman. After the divorce, he'll be left with nothing." Raphael truly basked in endless comfort with Valentina. At home, she was gentle and good-natured. All the chores were handled by specially trained people, as his wife called them. She explained, "On weekends, I'll fry you sirniki or pancakes or cutlets. On weekdays, I come home late, wrung out like a lemon, so with my salary, I can afford to hire a housekeeper and a cook." After long days, the apartment always greeted the young couple with delicious aromas wafting from the kitchen. The rooms shone with cleanliness and freshness, so their rest was complete. Lounge on the soft sofa and watch TV, or ditch these domestic blessings and head to the movies, a club, a restaurant. Go out, see people, be seen. Raphael increasingly caught himself barely thinking of Carmen. Since coming back, he hadn't even stopped by once. And Valentina kept dosing him ever more with the poison of possibilities. She wasn't making long-term plans, nor did she aim to burn the rival out of his heart. He still didn't repulse her, even now. But her heart was empty, indifferent. It was silent. No flutter, no warmth. She decided to carry the spectacle with the tempting property all the way to the final curtain and applause. A couple more weeks later, Isabel's patience snapped for good. Imagine, she'd spent 2 whole days in the kitchen to host the kids and the in-laws. She'd cooked up a feast, dusted off every one of her signature recipes that always turned out right. She prepared for the arrival of important people as if she were receiving a royal couple. Everyone at the table was impeccably polite, but the hostess had just one question on the tip of her tongue, which she finally dared ask the young pair. "My dears, when will you make us grandparents? It's better to prepare for such an exciting time in advance. Your apartment is roomy enough for babies, but children need fresh air constantly. You ought to think about a country nest by the water somewhere. Building a place like that isn't quick. Best to start now." Isabel's sharp eye didn't miss the way the in-laws exchanged glances at her words, and Valentina didn't delay with her answer. "As it happens, my parents and I are going out of town this weekend, while the autumn days are still warm. We're going to look at plots for a future house and choose a picturesque spot. Join us." The young woman smirked to herself, but neither Raphael nor his mother noticed. They were both so delighted they could barely contain their excitement. They all agreed to drive out together in 2 cars. Raphael's father kept quiet. A gentle soul, a hard worker, an employee at a research institute. He didn't carry much weight at home. His whole life he'd been the butt of his wife's jokes, and then his son's too, for his paltry salary and his lofty ideas. His work had never brought in any profit, so who would ask his opinion now? A useless little man, in Isabel's view. She'd set her sights on the wrong prince in her youth. Handsome looks don't pay the bills. At least he'd passed on good sturdy genes to their son. Since Valentina's husband and her parents were trying to make everyone happy, Isabel and her husband would eventually be able to spend as much time as they wanted, relaxing at their son's country estate. Everyone would benefit from this plan. The drive to the plot they were all going to see took about 2 hours. Isabel and Raphael were burning with impatience. The others chatted about everything and nothing. Outside the window, slender birch branches drooped toward the ground, mingling along the roadside with clumps of evergreens. In the distance, a small river snaked across the land. Even at the rest stop by the gas station, where they stretched their legs and had coffee, you could feel how sweet and delicious the air was. Just 150 kilometers from the noisy metropolis, and already such a contrast. Beyond a low hill, a fairy tale scene suddenly opened before their eyes. Something you'd paint in oils. A cottage community, that's what it was. A collection of charming houses set among dense greenery. Straight streets, tall, stately fences. Valentina's mother-in-law grew agitated. You want the kids to build their house here? Everything looks so expensive, so beautiful, you can't take your eyes off it. Valentina's mother smiled and briskly replied, no need to build anything anymore. House number 6 is ours. We prepared it in advance and we're just waiting for our daughter to choose a husband. We didn't even tell her until the time was right. We signed a deed of gift the day before the wedding. We wanted to tell them earlier, but my husband started a bit of remodeling, turning a simple house into a smart home. He stuffed it with tech so everything would be up to date, and he added a sauna and an indoor pool. If you're going to relax, relax properly. Our kids work so hard. And when they decide to become parents, there'll be so much room for the little ones on the grounds. Isabel went white with rage. A little more, and she'd have been ready to go for their throats. The question trembled on the tip of her tongue. Why are all these gifts to the young couple in Valentina's name? Why were you in such a rush to buy all this? So my son will be just a guest, not a master, of a lavish house, behind the wheel of the dream car, and here at the country place too? She was stunned when her co-mother-in-law seemed to hear every one of those questions and began to explain, sighing, Isabel, for heaven's sake, don't think I'm throwing stones at your garden, but today's young families are so unstable. It's not like in our time. We can't know in advance how many years Raphael and Valentina will be together. What if things go wrong? Don't take me the wrong way. We're not eternal. We have to secure our daughter's future in advance, whatever it may be. Women are the weaker sex, and Raphael is a man after all. If they part ways, he'll always manage to earn his daily bread. Providing for the family is a man's lot. I never had to worry about that with my dear husband. With every word, Isabel's mood grew worse. Their dialogue sounded polite and civilized, yet she felt like cats were scratching at her soul. The tour of the house and grounds only deepened her gloom. Valentina's mother-in-law had only seen such country palaces in movies. Household staff lined up on the porch to greet them. The cook announced that lunch would be served in the insulated gazebo, and all the drinks were already set out in the fridge's bar section. Raphael's knees went weak at the sheer scale of what he saw. So much, and all of it out of reach. From the outside, this orgy of wealthy purchases looked like baited fishing lines. He thought, so what am I to them? A catfish that's content only when it's being chummed. I've already swallowed the hook. I've given myself completely into their power. No way. In the middle of the lavish meal, someone suddenly knocked at the gate. The new owners shrugged. They didn't know anyone here yet, and Valentina's father went to open it. The staff had been dismissed for the evening. Even the groundskeeper watchman had been sent off for the weekend. They'd manage and settle in on their own. A bearded older man stood outside. A shaggy puppy fidgeted beside him, and from behind his back, a little girl of about 5 peeked out timidly. Good evening, the bearded man boomed. Allow me to introduce myself, your nearest neighbor, Emiliano. My daughter and I were walking the dog, heard loud voices in your yard, and decided to stop by. In our village, we all know one another, so it wouldn't hurt to get acquainted with you too. Valentina, who had lost patience, decided to see where her father had disappeared to, just as the men were shaking hands. And then something unexpected happened. From behind, her father stepped a fair-haired little girl. She peered intently at Valentina, wrapped her arms around Valentina's knees and asked, "Are you my mommy? Have you come?" The bearded man clicked his tongue in frustration, pried the girl's hands from Valentina's legs, and smiled apologetically. "I'll explain everything later. It's fine. Don't be alarmed. Soledad and I will go now. Sorry to bring confusion into your evening." Valentina glanced quickly at the little one, whose eyes were already filling with tears, and suddenly called out for the whole neighborhood to hear. "Oh, house sprite, Vasquez. I don't know if this little girl will come have tea and cake with us. As for me, who am I? The new lady of the house. Today, Vasquez, we'll get acquainted. I'll set out a saucer of honey and a mug of milk for you in the gazebo. Do us the honor and try our treats." Soledad, perched in her father's arms, watched the whole performance with open curiosity. Her eyes dried and sparkled with joy. She immediately turned to her father and pleaded, "May I have a little tea and cake? And where does your house sprite Vasquez live? Can I see him too?" Later, Valentina couldn't explain to herself why. At the moment when Soledad asked if she was her mother, something snapped inside her. She no longer wanted to put up with Rafael. She no longer wanted to hide that she had seen the video. She didn't want to go back to the same apartment with her husband. She was aching for something else. Real happiness, not illusory, not acted, but alive. A little girl like this, a human family. Not an apartment, not an SUV, not a country mansion, just a family, a normal one, the way it should be, without masks, comedies, lavish sets, and sad scripts. The unexpected guest didn't stay long for tea. Emiliano bowed and led Soledad away, the girl still trying to figure out where the house sprite Vasquez was hiding. It was time to sleep in the new house. That's when Rafael decided to start a serious conversation with his wife. Put the question squarely. What was this distrust on the part of his wife and her parents? Valentina didn't want to hash things out at all. Silently, she thrust under his nose the video she had quietly copied in the stairwell from the technician's tablet. Raphael was stunned. He began to justify himself, that she'd misunderstood everything, and Carmen had been with him only before the wedding. After that, not once. He hadn't visited his former, as he put it, girlfriend even a single time. Valentina had no desire to discuss anything further. She still found the strength to answer her husband. "Raphael, you know as well as I do that our marriage is an illusion, a utopia, a deception. I'll file for divorce on Monday. We have no children, and I'm not pregnant. It will go quickly, without red tape. Tonight, you'd better sleep in the guest room. Our family has finally run its course." Isabel couldn't sleep either in the luxe bedroom. Only her simpleton husband failed to grasp what they'd lost today. She was furious. Raphael hadn't justified her trust. He hadn't completed the task. And all because of his infatuation with Carmen. If not for that pauper, things might have turned out differently. She fell asleep toward morning, but an enraged son didn't let her rest. He burst into the bedroom like a madman and stared at his mother like a boa at its prey. "This is all your fault. You pushed me into lying and ruined my life. Valentina and her parents know about our scam. Pack your things, we're leaving. Only winners go unjudged. The three of us here are losers." Valentina, on the contrary, woke in a wonderful mood. She peeked into Raphael's parents' room to invite them to breakfast. She wasn't going to throw them out hungry. She and her parents weren't beasts, and they knew something about culture and hospitality. But the room was already empty. Valentina understood that the would-have-been in-laws had already heard about her nighttime conversation with her husband. Well, so be it. As they sowed, so would they reap. She smiled in satisfaction, curtained down on the marriage farce. She was free again, and it seemed not particularly upset about it. Valentina switched on the kettle, started the coffee machine, and told the voice assistant to choose a pleasant musical background. The intercom chimed. The little screen showed Soledad, shifting from foot to foot with the puppy beside her. Both looked lost. Valentina threw on a jacket, hurried to the gate, and flung it open. "Early visitors. Come in, Soledad. I hope your dad knows you decided to pay the neighbors a morning visit." The girl began to chatter breathlessly. Oh no, Dad doesn't know we ran away and slipped out. He's busy right now. You didn't answer my question yesterday. Are you my mom? Dad keeps saying she'll come soon, but she never does. Valentina realized her trick with the imaginary house sprite Vasquez wouldn't help now. To stop the girl from trying to see her as her mother, the matter had to be settled immediately. In a gentle voice, with not a hint of sternness, she proposed to Soledad. Let's go to your dad right now and put the question of your mom squarely on the table. I'm not her, alas, but we should find out when your real mommy will appear. She took the little one by the hand. The puppy trotted obediently after them. A minute later, they were at Emiliano's gate. It was ajar, and Valentina decided to enter without ceremony. The first thing she saw was a wall-mounted hand basin over a large tub, and with his back turned, a man snorting at the cool droplets of water. At the sound of her steps, he turned. Valentina couldn't believe her eyes. Without the beard and mustache, Emiliano looked 20 years younger. Not an old man with a spray of wrinkles around lively eyes, but a solid, imposing man with a military bearing. A thought flashed through Valentina's mind. He's a former, or current, military officer, surely. Look at that build. Out loud, she said crisply, your little daughter paid us a morning courtesy call. I decided to walk her home so I wouldn't worry about whether she got back safely. Valentina thought she could address her suddenly more youthful-looking neighbor without the formal patronymic, so she went on. Emiliano, please don't take my curiosity as idle. She followed Soledad with her eyes as the girl ran after the puppy deeper into the garden. She brought up her mother again. I don't know what to tell her to put the matter to rest once and for all. The man's eyes darkened at once. A bottomless sorrow came over them, and Valentina felt a chill inside. He didn't dissemble. He told it straight. I'm a career military officer, but I had to leave the service. I mostly worked in hotspots, constant, lengthy deployments. My wife left Soledad and me when she met the love of her life. She didn't want our daughter anymore, and I have no intention of handing Soledad over to a state institution. We have no one else. Soledad doesn't remember her mother at all, but she got it into her head that she's bound to come back for her. I didn't put that idea there. I suspect some soft-hearted preschool teacher filled her with stories. The other kids' mothers often come to pick them up, but it's always me for Soledad. I'll talk to her so she won't trouble you with hard questions. It's the novelty effect. You're new folks here, and she started daydreaming. Don't be too quick to tell her I'm not her mother. I have a proposal, Valentina said, surprising even herself. We're neighbors. We can be close as households. My husband and I are divorcing. I'll be coming out here mostly alone or with my parents. You and Soledad can show me around and introduce me to everything. If I'm not her mother, nothing stops me from being her older friend. Female friendship matters. I'd know. My mom and grandma have always been my best friends, and now I have to run, or my parents will start suspecting something. Valentina returned home in high spirits, which greatly surprised her parents, who had already made breakfast in her stead. The young woman took a satisfied sip of fragrant, freshly brewed coffee, bit off a hefty piece of a condensed milk croissant, and cheerfully announced, Oh, my dear parents, I have a ton of news. I'm divorcing Raphael, the spectacle with property and possessions is over, and I got to know our neighbor better. Don't laugh or be ironic. I think I've fallen in love. At first, no, at second sight. Without the beard, he's so handsome, so rugged it makes my heart skip. This morning he saved me in a flash, freeing me from every thought and doubt about my grasping husband. Valentina's father and mother exchanged glances, smiled, and said, We noticed yesterday how that bearded fellow couldn't take his eyes off you during tea, but he behaved properly, modestly, never let his daughter down from his lap. He's clearly very attached to her. Why not, dear? No one knows how happiness finds its way into a home. Maybe yours popped in next door and will stay by your side forever. Time will tell. Carmen was hurrying to Raphael's place. Rumor had reached her that her love was getting divorced, so it had happened. Soon they'd be rich and happy. Isabel opened the door to the apartment at the bell. She curled her lip. To what do we owe the pleasure, dear? My son isn't home, and even if he were, he wouldn't be happy to see you. Carmen was taken aback. Isabel, don't you recognize me? It's me, Carmen, Raphael's fiancée. You told me yourself that as soon as he divorces, I'll be with him, with your blessing." The older woman laughed sarcastically in her face. "And you believed me, silly girl. Raphael has already forgotten you while living in luxury, and he's going to hold off on the divorce. He went to make peace with Valentina. Don't you know how it goes with husbands and wives? Quarrels only spice things up. As for you, forget the way to our home. Its doors will never be open to you." Isabel ceremoniously slammed the door in the face of what was now her son's former beloved. Carmen trudged away thinking, there is no sincere, devoted love in this world. People are divided by class, and money decides who belongs with whom. Raphael always told me there's no woman better than me, but he was quickly poisoned by wealth and luxury. He showed his true colors. Perhaps God himself had steered Carmen away from that man. Maybe she shouldn't cry, but rejoice? Not finding his wife at the apartment, Raphael rode the commuter train packed in with the crowd heading home to the suburbs. He rehearsed the speech he'd give Valentina. "My love, you misunderstood. Here's how it really is." Or, "Valentina, I've always loved only you. We were so good, so cozy together." Or, "Valentina, let's talk seriously. I'm still your husband, and you have no right to refuse me." He didn't like any of these words. He sighed sadly and muttered to himself all the way from the flag stop to the gate. The house and yard were quiet. A guard came to his knock and said the lady had gone for a walk to the river. Raphael hurried toward the water. A romantic setting would play in his favor. Evening was falling. The setting sun and a faint crescent moon hung together in the sky. The leaves hadn't completely fallen. They gleamed a juicy yellow on the branches. Raphael reached the river quickly and froze. The romantic scene on the bank had already been set for Valentina by another man, a rival. The slighted husband crept toward two folding chairs where Valentina and that strange neighbor sat. They spoke softly, but the way Emiliano tucked the blanket around Valentina told Raphael far more than any warm words. Valentina turned to her companion and smiled at him so gently. The two of them were clearly content on that riverbank, without a luxury apartment, SUV, or country house, without wealth, comfort, shine, or glitter. A little girl flitted and chirped nearby. A puppy nosed around their feet, and they noticed nothing else. Raphael spat angrily at his feet, understood he was too late, that nothing could be undone now, and also that he was bitterly jealous of the man sitting peacefully beside his wife. His supposedly wise mother was wrong. Happiness isn't in a rich life, it's in the person close to you, the one who needs you as you are, without a hoard of gold or the tinsel of imaginary treasures.